Welcome to toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be taking this vintage Kenner Star Wars Y-wing and doing some custom work on it, because the Y-wing is one of those toys. It looks fantastic, but I've always thought it was missing something, and that is lights. The other Star Wars vehicles like the X-wing and the TIE fighter all had versions that had lights in them, but the Y-wing, basically it did have some electronics. You pressed a button on the back, it made an awful noise and the gun moved, and that was it. So I thought it would be fun to take this bare bones version of a Y-wing and add extra lights to it, so it looked really quite nice, and also really very nice when you put it on display. So that is what we're going to do today. So this is the Y-wing that we're going to use, and it's one that's been in my collection for quite a while now. It started off as the bare bones of a body, and over a few years I've sort of found various parts for it. Not all the parts are original. In fact, the front guns here are bits of Lego, and these rear engine rods are Connex rods, because I just haven't been able to find original ones, and the prices for original pieces are expensive. I know you can buy 3D prints, but as you've seen on this channel, I like to make things if I possibly can, and these Connex rods I actually think do a very good job of these rear engine struts, so those are something I tend to do if I've got a Y-wing anyway. But overall this is actually quite a beater of a ship. It's got lots of flaws, lots of damage, and that's why I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of customization work on it. And there's so many opportunities in this vehicle to do things like lights, and I really want to sort of go to town on this. Certainly if we look at the back of it, we can easily add some engine lights in here. The sort of internal area of these engine pieces, if I bring one in, you can see there's a nice hole in the middle, so we can easily add an LED into that, and it would just require drilling a small hole into the main body of the ship. If we go around to the front, on this one, as I say, this is one that I've replaced these front prongs with bits of Lego. So I was thinking, oh, actually it'd be quite easy to replace those with clear bits of Lego. So I bought myself some clear Lego antennas, and I'm going to be replacing those and then trying to hide some LEDs in the front behind here, so we can have some flashing LEDs coming out there. Then also in the cockpit there seems to be quite a lot of space, and it'd be quite nice to have a light or something maybe behind the pilot so it lights up all of this cockpit area. And then because we're adding all of these lights, it would be not quite nice to have a couple of sort of switches so that we can switch on the engines and the cockpit light with one switch, and then maybe have these lasers on a separate button, because again, if we go to the back of the Y-wing, there is a button here, and this is the button that you would press to activate the motor and make the gun turn around. So I think we can replace that with something. I've sort of got rough ideas of what I'm going to do, but until I open it up I'm really not 100% sure. So that's my rough plan. So let's just sort of get on with the project.
Toypolloi. That is incorrect. Try again.
So what are we going to need for this project? Well, lots of pieces. I've been buying stuff over the last few weeks. The first up was these Lego antennas. As I say, these are clear versions of the antennas. You can get these in various colours. I thought clear would be good, because then I could put a red LED behind it and they would sort of light up, but when it's not on you won't see a red piece to it. I was rather intrigued though when they arrived. They've actually all got sort of bubbles inside. You can see there's a bubble inside that one. I don't think it will affect what I'm going to do, because the light should still pass up it, and I also plan to paint most of it, so it's just the end part that you'll see is clear plastic. The rest of it will be painted grey, so I think that should hide it. But yeah, every single one of these aerials has got a little bubble in it of some sort. Some of them are bigger than others, so maybe I can pick and choose the ones that there's not such obvious bubbles, but it's quite interesting. And yeah, I didn't expect Lego to have those sort of flaws in them, but maybe with this clear plastic it just shows all of the issues that you have when sort of making Lego pieces. I've also then bought lots of LEDs. I tend to buy LEDs and just sort of keep them around because I use them for so many projects, and you can go on eBay and buy pre-wired LEDs in various types, various sizes with various options. So this is my bag of LEDs. I've got a few different ones here. So we've got some pre-wired red LEDs. I only need one of those. I also have some pre-wired flashing red LEDs, I think. So yeah, these are flashing red LEDs. So I just need one of those. I learned this when I was doing the Snowspeeder custom that I was working on. You only need one flashing one, as long as you put the other light in serial with this one. The first one will flash and that makes the second one flash. So I have here one flashing red LED that I need and one normal red LED. So that's for the lasers. I've also then got these orange LEDs, which are sort of solidly on orange. I'm thinking those will look quite nice for the engines. I know in Star Wars the engines are a bit red, but I think orange will look quite nice. And then for the light inside the cockpit, I did buy some white ones. I've got some red ones, and then I found in a bag from another project I have, where is it, this LED, which is called warm white, so I think I'm going to be using that one. It's not quite a bright white, it's just got a slight sort of tinge to it. I think that will be very nice to go inside the cockpit. As I say, I bought a lot of stuff. It seems like quite a lot of pieces. I have other bits that I've already sort of used for other projects. I've got things like battery connectors because we're going to be using a 9-volt battery. But for the button to make the lasers work, I bought something new. These are ones that I've not tried before, but I think it will fit quite nicely. These are little push buttons. They're not switches, so you just push the button, it will make a connection, and if you let go, it breaks the connection. So ideal for doing lasers. So on the back of this, I'm hoping that I can just fit that where the original switch is, and we can push that and it will light the lasers up, and as soon as you let go, the lasers go off. So I think that will work quite nicely. So as you can see, I have lots of bits, but what I need to do now is actually take this apart and see if there's space for all of my ideas to fit inside. It's been a very long time since I worked on this ship. This is one I fixed up, and I only sort of fixed bits of it up because I know there was lots of issues. So the gun doesn't actually work because there's a part missing inside. I'm not too concerned about that because I do want to remove the motor. We can take off this canopy here. I think that just unclips if I remember rightly. Take that off, take the pilot out, and take the gun part off the top there. And then, as I say, these engine pieces are all made out of Connect rods. So these are ones that I've cut and shaped previously. I've got plenty of videos showing how to repair old Star Wars toys, and I did cover this in one. I'll put a link to that in the description. So you can see lots of Connect rods that have been modified to sit on there quite nicely. Take that one off. You can take these engine pieces off. I think I'll give this a good clean as well. Everything looks quite dirty. I don't know if I've actually cleaned this before. I tend to sort of fix things up and just stick them in a pile for sort of future projects. So maybe I'll have to give this a clean. You can see the battery cover is missing. I do actually have a battery cover, but the hinges on that are broken. So again, we're going to have to sort of do something interesting with that. I'm not quite sure because I need to add another switch as well to get this sort of, so you can switch the whole vehicle on. So one switch maybe on the underside and then the push button on the top. So there you go, that's the bare bones of it anyway, taken apart. Now we can go ahead and unscrew it. There seems to be a lot of screws missing as well. Maybe that's another thing. Yeah, it's actually only held together with 2 screws. I obviously, this really was a bare bones of a ship. So there's just 2 screws at the front. I'll have to find some others at some point because we want to put this together properly. So if I just undo these 2 screws, we can then see what the inside of this ship looks like. And there we go. That doesn't look too bad at all. I must have certainly done some work on this. I can in fact see a piece of Lego, so I was obviously coming up with some idea here. If I take this front seat out, yeah, I can see I was obviously doing some work here. There's a piece of Lego holding that gear in, so I must have had a plan at some point. But I reckon there is a fair amount of space in there. I think with a little bit of sort of careful thinking, I'm certainly sure that we can fit all of these lights in. So let me have a little ponder. And yeah, then I'll start working out a plan and we can start working out how to put the wiring in and getting everything fitted. Okay, I've had a ponder and I think I've come up with a plan. I'm going to have to remove some of the internal parts of this, but that was sort of what I'd expected because underneath the seat you can see this is the motor and the bit that makes the noise. In fact, if I turn this, that's the sort of laser noise you get, and it's supposed to turn this post to make the gun sort of move around. I can remove the motor and most of these gears. We need this post because that's what the gun mounts onto, so I'm going to remove all of that because I'm not going to use it. On the front here you can see this is where the little lasers go, and these are the ones that I made out of Lego, and actually that's quite a good sort of solution I've come up with there. So I'm going to redo that but using these clear rods, as I say, and I'm going to have to drill a hole in the side because what I want to do is basically mount an LED in this little sort of area here, and that also will stop any sort of light bleeding. So if I mount the LED there and then put the new Lego antenna pointing out, we should get quite a lot of light sort of firing up it. I think that will work quite nicely. So that's how the front's going to go, and then these wires I'll have to sort of bend and they'll have to come all the way down the middle of the toy. I've got to avoid the mechanism that moves the landing gear up and down, which I think it should be all right because there's a bit of space underneath it, so I can put the cabling under that. And I'm going to use the battery compartment to hide all of the wiring in the end because there's quite a nice sort of hole going in there, and I think that will work quite nicely. And then if we come round to the back here, let me rearrange my desk. we need an LED that comes into the hole there on the back of this engine. So that I want to come out quite far so that you can actually see there's quite a glow. So I think these are going to have to sort of be sticking out of the back of the ship, which is good because it means I can just drill a couple of holes either side of this support post where the screw goes through. And I should be able to sort of bend the wires around like that and sort of mount that on something like that. I have actually found a piece of plastic here which is going to be quite useful because that just fits in the hole in the end of this engine block, so I can use that to mount the LED. And we mount the LED probably sort of 2 centimeters away from the back of the ship so that when this goes on, the LED is sitting there. I think I've got a plan. It's sort of rough ideas at the moment and it may change as I go along, but it's a good starting point. So I'm going to strip out all of the pieces that I don't need in this ship and then give it a clean because it is quite dirty. I hadn't realised quite how dirty it was. Then once that's done, I think we'll start with this front part here because that's probably going to be the easiest. I do need to also drill one extra hole here because that's where I'm going to mount the light that will sort of light up the cockpit. But yeah, just a few bits of modification to that. Anyway, let's get it all cleaned first. Then we'll start working out the wiring and working out all of the other complicated pieces. Everything's good and clean now, so I can start getting to work on the first part of this project, which I'm going to start with the lasers at the front because I think that will be the simplest thing to do. So you can see here, this was the original piece that I'd made for my sort of placeholder Lego guns at the front, and I've just modified one of the new Lego aerial pieces to make something that I think will work for lighting up. So basically I've taken one of these clear versions of the aerial or antenna and just trimmed off the little sort of peg hole at the end, and then I've attached one of these pieces, which I'm not quite sure what it's called, but I'll find out and I'll put the number at the bottom of the screen, and it turns out that you can slot that over the top of the little aerial piece like that, and it makes a perfect sort of gun replacement. So I've just put that in there so you can see the end has been trimmed off a little bit, and then I put a little O-ring over the front part of it just to hold it in place. This is exactly what I did on the old version I'd made. You can see that I've now got a sort of clear laser that fits in there. Now we need to test it, so this is my sort of proof of concept stage. Here we have a flashing red LED. These are pre-wired LEDs that you can buy on eBay. There are lots of different versions and lots of different colours, so this is a flashing red one. And if I bring in my battery here, these are 9-volt LEDs, so you need a 9-volt battery, and if I pop the positive on there, and then I'll put the negative on there, you can see that this is flashing red. That looks pretty good. So for proof of concept, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick that in there. In the end, I want to drill a hole through the side. There's not space to have the wires coming up at the top, and there's not space to have the wires coming down at the bottom. There's also not space to have them coming back there. So I'm going to drill a hole through the side and mount this so that it sort of comes out, and I'll then do the same to this side. But before I do that, yeah, we just got to do a proof of concept. I've got a little bit of blue tack here. I'm going to pop that over here so that we can't see the rest of the LED. It's all hidden away. Hopefully when I plug this in, we will just see that this Lego piece is lighting up quite nicely. So let's try that. Again, I'll put the positive one on there, negative on there. Oh yeah, I can see that is flashing. If I switch my lights off, yeah, I'm going to switch my lights off and you'll be able to see this a lot clearer. Okay, so you can see that is flashing really nicely, and it's really quite bright as well. So proof of concept, that is going to work. So now I need to drill a hole in the side. I'm going to spray paint most of this clear antenna as well. I will mask off both ends, and I'm going to spray paint it. So basically you just have a red flashing into it, and then we'll do the same on the other side. But that is definitely going to work. That's going to look really nice. Okay, so time for a quick test. I've got everything wired up. I've put some insulation tape over the top of the LED so we don't get too much bleed into the main cockpit area. If I hold these onto the battery, we can see how those are working. Yep, they're working really nicely. So you can see we've got nice flashing guns there. I think that's going to look very nice indeed. I might put an extra layer of insulation tape over. As you can see, it is bleeding through a little bit, but not too bad. That should be enough to sort of hide it inside the cockpit. I've also taken the opportunity to add a light here at the back, which I mentioned earlier. So I've just drilled a 3mm hole through there, and I put in a warm white LED. So that's essentially the front section all done. I've now got to work out how I'm going to fit the lights onto the engines, and then I've got to work out how I'm going to connect them all together so that these ones are controlled by that separate button. But overall, that's a really good start. It's working really well. The bit of spray paint has certainly made these look quite nice. It means that we're just going to get a glow at the end. I think that's going to work very nice indeed. So yeah, second bit of insulation tape just to try and block out some of that light bleed. But I think that part is done. I've just put the wiring together just to check that everything fits, and it really does seem like it's going to work. So those are the new little bits of Lego on the front. They're looking really quite nice. I've managed to get all of the wiring sort of roughly around the side, and if we turn it over you can see a couple of the cables actually do reach the battery compartment already. The ones for the lasers stop about here, so I'll have to extend those, but that's not going to be too bad. So I think everything's going to fit inside there, which will be good. Even the 9-volt battery will fit in there, and I'm going to velcro that onto the top. So I think it's going to work quite nicely, and I'm going to put the switch in here as well just so it's not visible. And just for a quick test fit, I've also put the push button here. So this is the button that's going to fire the lasers at the front. You can see that just screws in place, and it actually fits without any modification to the hole at all. I may end up painting this sort of nut here that's a nice shiny metal at the moment. I may paint that a bit of a grey so it's just a bit duller, but that does work as well. Now we can come on to fitting the sort of engine glow. So what we've got here is my sort of prototype of how I'm going to fit those engine lights. I've taken a piece of this plastic tubing that I've shown before on various sort of Star Wars restorations. I've used it for quite a few things. It's got a hole down the middle. The hole wasn't quite at the right size, so I've actually drilled that out, and I've cut off a 2 centimetre long piece of it, because my plan is that this will insert in there, and you'll just see the LED sticking a little bit further out. I think if we put the LED too far in, it won't give any sort of glow, so I want to stick it so that it's actually sort of in this sort of main cylindrical part of the engine. So 2 centimetres out should fit quite nicely. So that means that this needs to be mounted on the end there, pointing outwards, and that should work okay. So I've got to drill a couple of tiny holes in the end here so that we can thread the cables through. I don't think I'll even have to sort of glue this in place because it will just rest, and then this piece, once it's on, holds it in place. So maybe just a coat of grey paint so it's not so obvious. But I'm going to drill a couple of holes here and then start threading these wires through, and again the wires all need to end up in this battery compartment, which I think they should, just judging by how long the wires are and where we can get to. That shouldn't be a problem. So I'll get this all fitted, and then I'm going to worry about how to actually wire it up and how to connect these all together. I think getting the LEDs fitted is the bigger problem to start with. Okay, so I've drilled that hole on both sides, and I've actually drilled a couple of extra holes through these internal walls on this side just to thread the cable through, because I'm guessing they're there to give this ship structure, but they're in the way as far as this cable goes, and drilling holes seem to be the easiest way of doing it. So I've now got the cable threaded through. There's a hole there, hole there, hole there, and then it goes all the way around into the original battery compartment. I think I want to do a quick test again to check that this is all going to work. So if I put the top of the ship back on, like so, you can see that now has the light sticking out the back of it on that little bit of post there. So if I get one of the engines, we should be able to slot that over the top. Now these do line up a specific way if I remember rightly, so we have to sort of slot them on like so. Obviously the ship is not screwed together, so it's not going to fit quite right. Is that going to fit on? Which way round do these go? I can't actually remember which way round these fit on. I think it must be like that. There we go. That does fit on. Yeah, so that fits on nicely. And if I move it around a bit so you can see, yeah, there's the light in the back of it, and it's just about the right position. So yeah, I'm happy with that. What I need to do is drill the other holes on the other side to get the cabling in, and I'm going to quickly paint those bits of tubing just so that they're this grey colour. You can't really see them, but there's the off chance that you might be able to, so I want to do that before I get everything fitted in place. But the idea is going to work quite nicely. That's going to give quite a good glow quite far down the engine. Yeah, that's going to be nice. So let's get the other bits fitted, and then we can start doing the proper wiring. And just like magic, there we go, they are now painted. And as you can see, they are going to work really quite nicely. If I get one of the engine blocks here and we'll stick that over the top. Again, I've got to line this up properly, which is like so. that is really going to look quite nice. You can see they fit in, and now they're painted grey, you can't see that tube at all. So what I've got to do now is again take this apart and do all of the wiring inside. I have a rough idea of how I'm going to do this, but I think I'm just going to sort of wing it and see what I can get to work. I know I've got to connect these two lights together. These need to be in series. I've also got to connect the little cockpit light up to these as well, so that when I switch the main switch on, the engine lights and the cockpit light come on as one switch, and then I want this button to control the lasers at the front, so they will need to be on a separate part of the circuit. I think I know what I'm doing, so let's just get soldering. Okay, it's proof of concept time. I've wired everything up. I haven't put the main switch in yet, but I've put all of the other bits in. So all of the wires are sort of connected where they need to be. I've made it so that the engines and this inside cockpit light come on when you just plug it in and switch it on. And I've added an extra switch here which just controls the lights at the front. So I have to press that to get the lasers to work. So let's try this. I'm going to plug the batteries in. I'll switch the lights off so you can see everything working. So if I plug that in, yep, everything is on. So let me just switch my room lights off and you should be able to see that a bit clearer. So here is the cockpit light. You can also see the engine lights going. If we look at the front, there should be no light coming through these lasers until I press this button here. So let's press that. And there we go, those are working as well. So there we go, that is it all as I'd planned. We press the button there and the lights do come on. Yeah, that's good, I'm really pleased. It takes me a little while to work out this wiring because I'm not really an expert at it. I sort of have to do it in stages, but everything is working. In fact, this is really bright, this one. I might have to do something to sort of tone that down a bit. Maybe when all the cockpit's on, it's not going to be too bright, but that is a really bright light. Everything's working now. Let's get the switch in and we can put this all back together. Right, this is some time later as I've actually made quite a few modifications as I've gone along, just because I've realised that some of my wires will be in the way when I start to put in the landing gear mechanism. And actually that's sort of answered one of my questions, is why didn't they bother doing something like this when this vehicle was first sort of released back in the 80s? And I'm guessing it's because the landing mechanism is really quite complicated and takes up so much space and means that if you've got to get wiring through it as well, everything is really awkward. I've had to drill lots of holes through sort of internal plates this side to get the wires to come through. underneath the wing mechanism, or this sort of landing gear mechanism, so that's been a bit awkward. And I have done it. I think it will work. The test will be when I actually put everything back together and check that the landing gear does work, but it should work. So now I've attached the proper battery connector, and I've put a switch. This is all going to be hidden inside the battery compartment. I'll show you that later on, but it does all work. So if I switch this switch here now, you can see the lights come on. That is all on, and the light up there works. And if I press this, then the lasers work as well. You can't see that in this shot, but it does all work. So everything is good to go. Now let's try to put this back together. I'm just going to sort of work my way through this. I know where everything needs to go, and there are videos around that show you how to put together a Y-wing if you need to fix your own. But in this instance, it's just going to be a little bit fiddly because I've added all of these wires. So I'll get that working, then I'll show you the battery compartment, and that should be the final ship. It's now all back together, but it was actually quite a pain to get this thing back together because I've added all of those wires in, and because the landing mechanism is so complicated. It's taken me a few goes to sort of rearrange things and get them all in the right place, but it now works, and I'm pretty happy with how it's sort of gone together. It's certainly not the easiest of toy to deal with, but with the Y-wing, if you've ever taken one apart, you'll know how sort of awkward and difficult it is. So let's take a look at what I've done. If I turn this over now, you can see on the underside, I'll just take the bomb off. This is the battery cover. This is a broken battery cover, as I said, so the clips don't actually hold in, but they hold in well enough. And what I've done is I've just stuck a bit of Velcro to the battery and a bit of Velcro to the side of the ship there, and that holds in place. So if you ever want to take the battery out, you can just un-Velcro it like that and unplug it, and it comes out. So that's a nice easy way of doing it. I'll just Velcro that back in. And here is the switch. So if I just switch that on, the engine lights and the cockpit light will come on. I can put the battery cover back on. And then I'll turn this over, and you can see there's the cockpit light. If I turn it around, the engine lights are going as well. So let me switch off my main filming lights, and you'll get the full effect of these. And then we can also test out the lasers. So there you go. This is my darkened room. You can see the cockpit light really does light up very well. I would say it might be a little bit too bright, but I sort of like that effect. It's good. You can see the pilot gets lit up really nicely. And if we rotate this round, well, you can already see how the engines are working. They're lighting up the back part of the engine there. I'll turn it around, and then you get this nice orange glow. I think that is really very effective. It's really gives quite a good sort of, well, yeah, almost like a sort of studio type vibe to this. It really looks like it could be a filming model. And then of course we have the lasers. I've just turned this around a little bit and rearranged my camera because now I can show you the lasers. So if I press the button on the back of this, you should see those lasers firing quite nicely. Again, that's really quite a nice effect, quite a simple thing to do. They're not quite as bright as I'd hoped. Maybe that I need to swap out those LEDs for some brighter LEDs, but the overall effect is working very nicely, and I'm happy with how this has come out. Certainly these little bits of Lego do allow the light to travel down quite nicely. I think maybe though brighter LEDs would give you a bit more of a full-on effect. So there we go, that is it for this project. I've taken what was a very battered Y-wing and turned it into a really nice displayable piece. These extra lights really do make a massive difference to it. I really like the orange glow that's coming out the back of those engines. It's such a sort of dramatic effect, and I think the light in the cockpit just adds that extra bit of detail to it. So I'm glad that I went down this route. It's certainly not the easiest of projects to work on because there's so much going on inside the Y-wing. It does make it a little bit awkward to get the wiring in, and I have removed all of the original wiring and the motor just to make space at the front, but the landing gear adds that extra issue at the back. But it can be done. All of the bits that I've used on this project I have bought off eBay. If you look for RC lighting kits and RC lighting, there are loads of sellers selling different combinations of lights and LEDs, and you just have to work out your own combination of those and then search for various switches and push button switches, and you'll find the things that you need. If you've enjoyed this video, then check out some of my other custom Star Wars projects where I've added lights to ships and custom stickers and all sorts of things. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.